typically your top 5 to 10 candidates are going to be people in your own network.
Do you think that somebody can be a sales leader if they haven't sold before?
If they've never sold before to like customers?
Yeah.
No. As my scope has grown and I've taken on teams that I'm not an expert in leading, having a recruiter that has expertise in hiring for those functions is really, really helpful.
If your team knows that, it's almost more motivating in some ways.
Typically, the 2 things I'm looking for is motivation and coachability.
Welcome to How I Hire, the podcast where we talk with senior go-to-market leaders about how they find, vet, attract, and grow new talent. Today, I'm joined by Josh Roth. I've known Josh for a number of years. I think we first met when he was SDR leader and really catalyzing that. And I was trying to stop it with stopping emails with Gated. Since then, Josh has led sales at Lob, and he's now at Pipify, which is an AI no-code automation platform. If you're building AI no-code, call Josh. Josh, welcome.
Andy, I'm super happy to be here.
That's awesome, man. Hey, well, maybe we kick it off just like as you think about building out the people underneath you and hiring them, like when you need a new role, how do you start thinking about that role?
I think that the first place I always go to is, do I have somebody internal that I could pluck for this role? If I'm doing my job well, to me, I should be able to identify opportunities and growth roles and the people that are candidates to take those roles. So I will always try to start internal, thinking 6-8 months down the road, and then identifying internal talent first. And then if I need to go external, I will.
I love that. You're the first person to answer it that way. And I think so deeply about that as well, too. Do you have in your mind, you're like, here are the people I know that are ready for the next challenge, and here are people that maybe aren't. And so you kind of know where you can stretch somebody a little bit before you even do it.
Exactly. And if I'm doing my job well and developing the right people, then I'm already having these conversations with these people around where do they want to grow to. And as the team grows, where can I kind of place each person? Kind of thinking about how can I tailor the role and the responsibilities to the person, their growth path, their aspirations, as opposed to vice versa.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I think the exact same thing. And I think if your team knows that, it's almost more motivating in some ways. Okay, so maybe take a time when you didn't have the right person. Actually, before I do that, I'd love to ask you, like, will you throw people that are high aptitude but don't have the experience for it at a new challenge? Or how far will you stretch to be able to give somebody internal that opportunity?
I'll stretch pretty far. If typically the 2 things I'm looking for is motivation and coachability. If I feel like someone has both, I'm willing to stretch them pretty far, mostly because people stretched me that far. And I feel like, if people are willing to take that chance on me multiple times, then I want to take that chance on other people. And I also think that creates buzz, that creates culture around internal development. And as long as you have the right people with the right, work ethic, coachability, you can stretch people pretty far.
Have you ever missed on stretching somebody? And maybe not specifically naming the person, but like a reason why?
Yeah, I've definitely missed on stretching people. And I think I probably promoted people too fast. So it's actually normally, I think there's 2 really difficult transitions to make. One, actually maybe 3, but one would be SDR to AE. The second would be BDR manager to sales manager. And the third would be, probably a VP of sales or director of sales into like a VP of revenue, where you're taking on multiple teams, multiple departments. You have a lot to distract you, and understanding how to prioritize and delegate becomes immensely important. And if you don't already have the skill set to do that, when you take on roles with bigger scopes, in that sort of capacity, it can be really challenging.
I like that a lot. One thing I saw a lot at Culture Amp before we dialed in enablement was going from a high performing AE to an AE manager. Everyone's like, I'm kicking butt, I'm the top rep. And then we were like, I'm going to go be a manager. And then they would like often fall on their face. They're like, this is so hard. And I think then I was like, okay, we need to dial in enablement and get this right. And so I think I love how deeply you thought about like, what are the points when higher success or lower success on that side?
Yeah, it's tough. I think I probably forgot about that one. The AE to AE manager transition.
That feels like the most emotionally challenging because you got to learn how to be a manager. You can't do it all yourself. You've got to teach it. And I think I tend to advise people at that stage, like only go to big companies where they have great enablement to make that progression.
Yeah, I would also encourage, with people making that transition, really understanding why people want to move into AE management as opposed to being, growing into an enterprise or strategic AE. I find oftentimes you will hear not great reasons why people want to move into AE management. And ultimately, the biggest reason that I often hear is people don't want to sell, but they won't ever express that. They'll say it in different ways. And that is just about the worst AE manager you can possibly have. You have to have someone that loves sales so much that they are willing to make the worst sale that they need to, which is the internal sale. Selling externally is fun. That's the best part of the job. I love selling to customers. The sale that no one wants to make is the internal sale. It's understanding who and how you can influence to get what you need to get in order to be successful. Whether that's strategic, whether that's resources, whether that's help from another department, that's the sale no one wants to make. And you need to have someone that loves sales so much that they are willing to make the internal sale.
That's interesting. I've always been on the camp that I was never good at the external sales, but I love the internal sales. And so I've run teams, but I've never sold. So I have mad respect for the people that do. And I think that's an interesting one too. Do you think that somebody can be a sales leader if they haven't sold before?
If they've never sold before to like customers?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I agree. It's so hard to understand and help with objections and all of that stuff. It is interesting to see there's two paths for enablement, right? There's the teachers or there's the sellers that said, no, I'm actually better at teaching. And I've actually seen both work, but I'm curious if you have any theses on the enablement side as well too.
I think if you have a passion for teaching, coaching, consulting, I would even put in there to an extent, I think you could be a really good enablement leader. And I've seen it both ways. That, one of my favorite enablement leaders was an enterprise AE. And she was always really strategic. I always had a lot of respect for her and admiration. She went into enablement and has just been incredible. And I've also seen one of my favorite enablement leaders from WalkMe was a little bit more consultative, but he had great experience at Oracle leading their field sales team. And I think understanding how people learn that's a skill in and of itself. And if you have that skill, I think enablement could be a great place for you.
I agree. I think enablement's actually really, I got to really appreciate it when I kind of dove deep into it at Carta, and really learned it as well too. It can be powerful. I think either persona can work, but it's nice if they're sympathetic to, I'm explaining to you how to use this thing, but I also feel your pain as well.
The other thing I'll throw at you is the enablement to AE transition. I know one of our highest performing AEs at Pipefy was actually our former enablement leader. And he is just like a wizard. I mean, he is incredible with evangelizing the product, helping customers understand the art of possible. I mean, I wasn't a huge believer in it before him, but he's made me a believer.
That is awesome. I think when you've lived great enablement and then you've lived shitty enablement, like you start to appreciate it. Like I've lived two companies 10 out of 10s. And I think before I left Carta, I set them up so they could get to a 10 out of 10. I'm pumped for it. Okay. So you guys are a hot AI company. You got like 500 employees. You're growing fast. When you post a role or when you have a role, senior role, call it like director plus or VP plus, like, do you post that? Do you hold back? How do you think about that?
So I've done both. I've posted and I've held back. I found when I hold back, I get better candidates because it's more focused. And I think when I post, there's a lot of distractions that come, and you're almost more like managing an inbox, whether that's a LinkedIn inbox or your actual inbox.
Plus, I'm slacking you behind the scenes, being like, Josh, I got 3 people that ping me through the network, and
Exactly. Although those are typically good candidates, so I like that. But I found for whatever reason holding it back to a degree is actually quite helpful.
That is awesome. I'm the same way. So okay, so you hold it back, but how do you get it distributed? Like it's kind of the irony of ironies, right? Like you want distribution, but you don't want it distributed to everybody.
So I'll plug I'll plug both of us actually right here. So the way that we distribute it when we hold it back is when I create a role for Pipefy, I actually, we eat our own dog food. So I actually fill out a form on Pipefy.
Wow.
And as part of this form, it asks you who are your ideal candidates and where could we find other candidates and at what companies and why.
Oh, and your AI engine is going to go out and find them. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So AI will actually go out, give it to our recruiting team, and then our recruiting team will send messages, and then we'll just harvest the specific people that come in. And typically, your top 5 to 10 candidates are going to be people in your own network. So one of the roles that I'm hiring for right now, like I've got 7 to 10 people just from inside of my network and inside of 2 to 3 other people's networks that I really, really trust. And honestly, I haven't been this happy with a candidate pipeline for a role in quite some time. The other way is through you all Whisper and having the opportunity to get the right people where it's in front of very specific eyes that are going to be highly qualified and have the right levels of experience.
I love that. Have you ever used a recruiter? And if not, why?
Have I ever used a recruiter? Yes, I've used many different types of recruiters. Some certainly better than others.
Yeah. In what? How do you make that decision of like when do you use a recruiter? I'm curious on that one. It's fascinating for me because we'll give people like a quick pass on some hot candidates, but we don't go any further than that. And so I'm always interested in, and I've been there many times when like I post a role and everyone's like, hey, you want to meet this recruiter, this recruiter? I'm like, I'm not allowed to by my talent team or whatever it is. And it sounds like you guys have a great AI engine and talent sourcing team. So when would you find those times when you're like, I have no choice? But and it's not no choice because they're great and you're going to get great people. But like, when do you use a recruiter?
I think I'll use a recruiter in 2 circumstances. One, as my scope has grown and I've taken on teams that I'm not an expert in leading, having a recruiter that has expertise in hiring for those functions is really, really helpful. Being able to have a thought partner around what I should be looking for in roles that I don't really know what I'm supposed to be looking for is incredibly helpful. And the second piece is if there's any sort of time sensitivity around the role, if there's strategic goals that are potentially at risk, I also might use recruiters to vet upfront and to just get a flow of candidates in quickly to see if we can get anyone that in theory could be excellent to try to bring in again if there's goal or goals at risk.
That makes a ton of sense. I love the one about not your expertise. I always find that too. I'm like, if I'm hiring for a role I have never managed or done before, I'm going to call somebody outside. It may be like a board member, an advisor, or something like that. But the worst is if I've seen this happen way too many times, particularly for like marketing roles. People think they can interview for them, and they just show up and have a nice chit chat, and then they end up like blowing the role for sure.
Been there, not just with marketing.
Other roles too.
Yeah.
Okay, so say somebody does hear Josh or but Pipefy is hiring. How can people get through to you other than the front door? Are there any creative ways that people find you, break down the door?
So actually, we're hiring for a fairly strategic role right now. And the first candidate that came in, who I very rarely found the first candidate coming inbound to be a good candidate, because to me, it's almost indicative of someone that's just spending too much time on LinkedIn, not on their job. But this person sent messages to, I don't know if it was like 8 or 12 or 16, But this person sent messages to seemingly every executive at Pipefy.
And that's either annoying or that's incredibly successful. And it's like where that bar gets drawn is so funny.
I think a lot of that is in your story. This person just had a great story, because there are other times where I get messages and it's just, I really want this job. And you can almost tell that there's this sense of wanting the job for a job, not because it's Pipefy. And this person just had such a great story. And it really seemed authentic, and he had shared it with a number of different people at Pipefy. I remember coming back and usually after I'm on back to backs, I have Slack messages that just build up. But when I came off this, I had even more Slack messages than I normally do, and the vast majority of them were just, hey, this person is interested in this job, and they sent me a message. And I really appreciated that they didn't just focus on executives. They focused on, it was clear they built out kind of a map of the team and went to the team too. Because I was getting it from our AEs, I was getting it from our SDRs, and I was like, okay, that's really cool. Like, this person didn't just go to the executives that they felt could have maybe a stake in their hiring. They went to the team that they would actually be working with and some partners of theirs, their day-to-day partners. And I thought that was a nice move.
I really like that one. Everyone's always like, I got to find the hiring manager. I got to ping the hiring manager. I'm like, the hiring manager is on Slack with whoever you talk to in that company, right? So if you talk to an AE, they can Slack the CMO and be like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. CMO, like, I met this really great person. I had a nice chat with them. And so I did that a lot when I was like earlier in career. I was like, I'm just going to go meet anybody at that company that will talk to me. I'll impress them. I'll get to know them. And then I'll ask, hey, can you put me in? And
this is it. And I'm going to go on a small tangent here for a second. Like, I think so many people, when they are trying to get hired, they think too linearly in a box, in that they are looking for manager of, director of, they just want leaders. They're not looking for ICs, when I actually believe if you find the right IC with the right influence, that has much more impact than going to a manager of some other function that, you'll probably have some role to play. But for me, I want to hear from my highest performing ICs. If someone is going to be good, I want to talk to them, because if they can make my highest performing ICs' jobs easier, that is my job too. And if my ICs have conviction that someone's going to make their job easier, that's the first person I want to talk to.
Dude, I love that. That is the best articulated version of that. But yeah, it's not just anybody. It's figuring out the best ones. I did that where in my last job search, I ended up just talking to like high-performing AEs at these companies. And one guy told me, he's like, our company just did a partnership with Snowflake. It's growing by like 120% a year. I'm like, okay, awesome. Can you introduce me? It didn't end up going anywhere because they weren't hiring for it. But I like those, you can do those things and you can get to them. A big thing I always tell people is have a target list of companies. We won't dive into how you found Pipefy, but that's for another podcast for sure. Okay, so you got to the interview process. Like, you've got somebody that figured out how to break through to Josh, either through your talent team or through you, or they've gotten to you. Like, how do you interview them? Do you have a favorite question?
I used to have this very structured process. Here are my questions. Here's what I want to do. And I still have a couple of questions that I will always ask people. What I've found is, with the introduction, adoption, and scale of AI, things are changing so fast that the question that you were going to ask is sometimes just not applicable. So what I actually do now is I try to give context on areas of what I think could be pitfalls for the person that I'm hiring for, areas that I think this person's going to need to be successful in. And I will actually just give context. So for one of the roles that I'm hiring for, which I did post on Whispered, I also posted on LinkedIn, which is our US director of solutions engineering role. What I've been asking people is like, look, we don't have a solutions engineering function in the US. You're going to lead a team of one person that's going to be based in Brazil. but this is very much going to be a position where you are going to be my technical counterpart when we are going and visiting customers in the US and Europe and in Canada, everywhere. So how do you feel about customer travel? Like, tell me a little bit about on-sites that you've done. Tell me a little bit about what you find successful on-sites to look like from a technical perspective. And then I just try to sit back and listen to their story. And I'm looking for a few things. Number one, I really want specificity. I think it's so easy to give a squishy answer of like, I love on-sites, yay. But in today's day and age, it's more than just getting on-site, because you have to almost prove your human qualities in a world that is hyper adopting AI.
Yeah.
And so getting on site is not enough anymore. It's about being really productive when you are on site, whether that's building integrations, automations, whether that's deploying agents. Like, you have to do something with your on sites. And so that's what I want to hear. I want to hear, what have you done specifically at your on sites? Give me stories, and I'll take this a level deeper. An on site that I felt was not very successful was actually one that I did recently. We went to a customer, and there was no real agenda. I'm not sure that we did a great job of preparing for this on-site. We took the customer to lunch. It was fine. Like, it was our first on-site with this customer. So it's better than nothing, right? But we could have done so much more. And compare that with an on-site that I did last year with a customer, where we had their entire executive buying team was a part of this. We had one of their CXOs a part of this. We had an entire agenda built out. And the AE was so meticulous that where we went out to dinner, he had actually planned who was going to sit next to who at this dinner. And he gave each of the stakeholders from Pipefy a specific person who our job it was to walk into the restaurant next to that person, to sit next to that person.
That's amazing.
That's the meticulous level of detail that I want to hear from interviews when I'm asking these stories. And really what I'm vetting for is like, do you actually have the experience? Or is this just going to be a squishy answer of you just confirming that you believe our strategy is the right one?
I love that. One thing I always, maybe it's more the RevOps interview mode, but I'll just be like, here's 3 topics. I'm going to give you 3. So you get a choice, you have agency. And then I'm going to go as deep as I possibly can on that, because it's basically, they've just given you permission to drill them. Whereas if you're like, I'm going to go deep on off-sites, they're like, oh shit. But if you're like, I'm going to talk about on-sites, discovery, or something else, you pick the one. They've just claimed knowledge of that topic. And so that's yeah, exactly.
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like, cool. You just, I had one guy, he walked right into it, right? Like, he picked the hardest topic, and I'll just keep going deep down that one. And he literally ran out of he didn't have an answer. And I was like, okay. And so, then we ended up hiring him, and that was a different story. It was not my call. Not my call.
Steal that story and end up with him getting hired.
No. I told my team not to hire him, but I do believe in letting them make the final call, because they have to learn. Right.
Fair.
Yeah. Do you do references on people?
Oh yeah.
Back channel or just front channel?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I know back channeling. I don't know when back channeling became like this like hot button topic. I saw like I commented on a LinkedIn post from someone. This was like last year, but someone saying that like back channeling is horrible and it's not ethical. And I was like, huh? Like, yeah. I couldn't believe it. I actually commented saying like, hey, like I will absolutely back channel, because I want to know like if this person's going to perform. Like, to me, my team holds me accountable to everybody that I bring in. And so if someone is low performing, which causes us to not perform as a company as highly, that is my responsibility. It's my accountability. They get to hold me accountable for that. And so of course I'm going to use every tool in my tool chest to evaluate someone before they join. And I said that on the LinkedIn post, and this person just went nuclear on me. I like could not believe how crazy.
Yeah, you and I both know how people can spout opinions on LinkedIn, but I'm with you. Actually, like, to me, it's absolutely needed, because we're going to do the damnedest we don't want to put you in our company and have you not succeed. right? And so, to me, I'm going to spend as much time as I need to, and I'm going to ask that. I ironically I've hired some of my best hires. I've not back channeled. But what I find is those front channel references just like double and triple up, right? Like I've hired her twice before, and I will hire her again. I wish I could hire her right now, but like everybody says that, right? And you're just like, okay, I need to hire this person, but maybe that's less in sales where you really do need to back channel, right? Because they can be, yeah, it's interesting. I heard a podcast the other day with some really smart people, and they were like, if you assume the back channels are not happening, that's a red flag in you of it yourself, right? Like you should just assume that they're happening.
One of the things that I try to tell people when I'm on the other side of this, when I'm getting hired, is like, go back channel on me.
Yeah.
Look, you 1,000% may find people that do not like me and do not want to work with me, but that is to me just as important as someone that's saying, oh my gosh, he's amazing. Like, in no world are you going to go 10 for 10. You go call 10 people. There's no way you're going to get 10 people saying yes. And I am 1,000% not going to get 10 people out of saying yes. But the one thing that they will share is I have very high standards. And the consistency of what people will say about me is what I am 100% sure of, is that people may have different opinions on me, some good, some bad, but no one would be able to say he doesn't have high standards.
Yeah, or he doesn't care, or he doesn't. It's like,
exactly.
I think those are, if you're doing your job slightly aggressively, I've always got that edge. Like you may have to piss somebody off here and there, and that's okay.
100% right.
I love it. Yeah, you're right. It's less do you like them or not? I think maybe where people probably object is somebody just slacks somebody like, hey man, is this person good? And they're like, nah. And then you're like, okay. But it's like, I always want to get on with those people. Every time somebody says it's like, hey Josh, do you have a back channel person? Like, hey, can we hop on the phone? I always do, cause it's like, you know that there may be nuance or substance to that. Like I got a back channel the other day, or not the other day, but like a year or so ago on somebody. The guy was like, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's to do it. Like I've even fired people where I've given reasonable back channels on them, right? Like, what's the role you're hiring them to do? Is it this or is it that? If it's that, I wouldn't hire them. If it is this, then I might.
I've gotten a few of those. I think especially in sales, people really like the back channel.
Yeah.
And my 2 cents is, and I've even gotten back channels on people that I've fired before.
Yeah.
My feeling is you always be honest. Let them make the final determination. Every person will have pros. Every person will have cons. Lay it out on the line on a back channel and let them make the final call.
Yeah, because you're one data point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you hired somebody. How do you make it successful? And how do you know if they're not successful? And how do you pull that trigger?
What I always want to evaluate for before anything else is the inputs. What are the behaviors going into this? Especially in sales, my past is littered with examples of people that really struggled in their first year at a company, but the behaviors were right. And so I've doubled down on them in year 2, and a number of them became, one of, or even sometimes the best salesperson at the company. And you can tell because the people that are doing the right things the right way, whether that's in revenue operations or in marketing or in sales or in customer success, there will always be behavior tells. Whether, in sales, what that is being close to customers. To me, if you are consistently showing an ability to get on site, to have a command of the small details, and to be willing to go the extra mile in whatever that looks like, that could be outbounding, that could be prospecting. If there's legitimate effort and there is evidence of that effort, I will continue to double down on you. I'll continue to bet on you. In terms of setting them up to be successful, I think there's a few critical things to do. And again, I think it depends on the function, but with my experience in sales, let's just use that as an example. The first is ensuring that there's going to be enough pipeline for this person.
Yep.
And I'm a data person. I'm always going to default to, does the data tell me this person can be successful? So the first thing I'm going to evaluate for is if this is a new logo AE, is the pipeline and is the territory legitimately right? I know that there are times where, companies will share the tune of like, this territory is great. No, not all territories are created equal, regardless of what you say. And
have you heard the Michael Ovitz story on territories? I think he was in New York as a young kid, and they divvied up New York with like 3 of them, and he wasn't there. So he got like north of 96th Street in Manhattan, right? But he turned out to get like one amazing customer that like made it all work for him, right? So it's like I'm with you. The territory design it can definitely disadvantage somebody for sure.
I was talking to someone the other day, and it was on an interview, and they were saying, look, I've had bad experiences, like I have gotten fired, and one of the territories he had at one point was like somewhere in Alabama, and he was like, I was calling catfish farmers. I was like, that sounds terrible. He was selling like software to catfish farmers. I was like, that sounds horrible. Like, I don't know that anybody could make that work. Like, I sure as shit could not make that work. So I think it's just understanding again, like, does the data tell you that you can be successful? If the data tells you that you can be successful, awesome. Now show me the inputs. How many on-sites have you done with customers? How have those on-sites gone? Are you getting on customer meetings with customers? And if you're not, are you spending your time prospecting and being strategic with where you spend your time? Are you tracking champions? Are you leveraging your network to take people golfing? And I think, again, if you're doing all of that and that evidence is clear, then you will be able to set that person up for success. In other circumstances, people just don't want to be set up for success.
Mm-hmm.
There was one AE that I hired at one point who I was super convinced was going to be great. Their case presentation was perfect. They're actually the only person to correctly identify the economic buyer in this case that I've given them. And I was like, there's no way this person won't be successful. We gave them a portfolio of accounts. The vast majority of them were publicly traded companies that were super, super bullish on us. Just didn't make the calls, didn't write the emails.
Wow.
The updates that they gave me was like, I sent an email to this person. I'm waiting on a response. This is a pipeline opportunity, but I'm waiting on this on summer vacations or whatever. I was like,
so how early with that one did you identify it, right? Because that's always the hard thing. Maybe it's different in sales. I'm always used to, I guess I have I'll lock on to people in the first month, and I try to know by the end of the first month, then sometimes get emotional. But at the same time, it's a gift if you can identify it early to both you and to them. So like how early would you identify something like that?
Typically, I have I call it my little like onboarding map, where I list out all of these milestones for different roles. So for a sales related role, on day one, I want to make sure that they are logged into their email, logged into Slack, right? Can you just like communicate with me on day one? Day two, I want them to have all of the tools they need to be successful. Salesforce, Navigator, ZoomInfo, Gong, whatever. By the end of week one, I want them reaching out to customers. So for this person, they had consistently missed. So they missed the end of month one having their first opportunity generated. So that was, to me, a yellow flag. They hit the second month. They did have a deal that they sold, but I had handed that to them. So I didn't really count it. I still counted that as a yellow flag. And then at the end of the third month, we were not in great shape. And so I had kind of identified, okay, we've got problems here. Person A is not doing what the playbook is that's working for everybody else. Why are they not doing that? So, I tried to have conversations and steer it in the right direction, but typically in sales, I find that you're typically going to know by month 3. And if you're going to be a good leader, they really should be out the door at the end of their 6th month. If you know in the first 2 to 1 2.
I love it. A boss of mine had the thing is like, if you own them at 91 days, you own them, right? Like it's on you. And so I really push that on my team, right? Which
I like that.
Try to. It's like cool. 30 days, 60 days. Like, did this work out or not? Because I think it gives people a chance to get back in, wipe that one off the resume, and like start it all over again.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I like that. I've never heard that if you own them at 91 days line. I'm going to take that too.
I love it, man.
Well,
we learned a lot today. This is awesome. Thank you. I'm deeply impressed. Like if people haven't met Josh, follow him online. I started following him online, and then I met him too. But like you're really good at growing people. I think you have that outbound mentality which you bring to everything, and like I love how you coach and invest in your people too. So I really appreciate this. This is awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would have thought? Who would have thought after sending emails and trying to block the emails to be sent, we'd be here?
Oh, dude, we keep growing. In 10 years, our AIs will be dueling it out in some fun way. Thank you, Josh.